The National Football League has a new policy designed to stop players from kneeling during the national anthem. If a player kneels on the field, the team will be fined. However, there is one concession here. Players will now be allowed to stay in the locker room if they choose. Stephen D'Souza has the story.
The NFL has been wrestling with this issue since 2016, when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee to protest police brutality as well as racial inequality. But it really became a flashpoint in the culture wars in the United States when Donald Trump began tweeting and speaking about this issue, saying that NFL players, mostly black, were unpatriotic and not showing respect to the flag. He even blamed declining ratings and lower attendance in the NFL for the players' actions. So the NFL, in its annual meetings in Atlanta today, came up with this new policy that states that any players and league personnel on the field must stand and show respect to the flag and the anthem. Any player not wishing to stand must remain in the locker room. If not, the team faces a fine.
We want people to be respectful to the national anthem. We want people to stand. That's all personnel, and make sure that they treat this moment in a respectful fashion.
The NFL Players Association put out a statement reacting to the new policy, saying that they were not consulted and that they may challenge aspects of the new policy. I also spoke with a prominent sports columnist who called the decision idiotic and a head-scratcher and said that NFL owners are caving in to Donald Trump's bullying. And already some owners are already pushing back. The owner and chairman of the New York Jets saying that he will take care of any fines levied against his team as a result of this new policy. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Let's talk about the NFL's new policy with Dom Cosentino. Dom is a sports writer for Deadspin who has covered the NFL player protests, and he joins me from New York. Dom, what's your reaction? What do you think about this announcement?
Well, I really think that the NFL was trying, just as one of the people said there, they gave in to Donald Trump's bullying on this. They had a policy in place that sort of allowed this to happen. The protests were never a big thing until Donald Trump made it a big deal. And now they really want to they attempted to kind of cut the baby in half, so to speak, by putting players into the locker room who might want to protest. But really what that's doing is taking the issue of the protest, the racial injustice that's at the heart of the protest, off the table. And it's allowing the league to continue to use the anthem as what's really a branding exercise for them. They're portraying this as a patriotic, respectful thing, but they really want to try to use the anthem to sell their product.
Yeah, why would the NFL owners cave? Is that the reason that they're using the anthem to sell their product, or is it also that as the New York Times is reporting, that they're a conservative bunch as well?
I think it's both. I think on one hand, there is they like to cling to the anthem as something the patriotic element of having it, of quote unquote showing respect, as Roger Goodell said in his statement and in the clip that you played there. But at the same time, they are really afraid of losing money on this, and the profit motive has really driven what the owners do across the board, whether it's an issue like head trauma or military pageantry that goes on. All of this is kind of a branding exercise for them and always has been, and yet they sort of can manipulate it in that way in their favor.
Yeah, but the American brand, as far as we've been able to tell historically anyway, I mean, it has been that you can even burn the flag if you want to, because your freedom of expression is so protected. How does this square with that?
Well, that's an interesting point, because, on one hand, the flag is supposed to represent the right that the players were expressing, which was that right to protest. But when you're talking about a corporation like the NFL that, is very concerned with public relations and very concerned with, the possibility that fans might tune out or anything like that, even if it's about doing the right thing and what the flag represents, they're going to cave to that kind of thing. And so in many ways, the decision today is not surprising.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll be challenged in court, Dom.
Well, the union is going to. I think it's going to depend on what is done. You know, if teams are fined, say, because the league was very careful to thread the needle to go after teams, not individual players, who might happen to protest. But if the teams then turn around and punish players as a result too, you could run into something that violates the collective bargaining agreement between the league and the union. So you had it. The league lawyered this very well in that sense that it wasn't a direct attack on what the players may do by punishing them directly, but it could be. So I think we'll have to see how this plays out come September.
In other words, how it trickles down to the player. What is a team going to do about a player who violates this policy and gets his team fined?
That's right. And if the team then wants to pass that fine or exact some other sort of punishment onto the player, now we're treading in more uncharted water.
Yeah, we sure are. What about, Colin Kaepernick himself? He's suggesting that he has been blacklisted ever since he took that first kneel in 2016.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he has, too. The Kaepernick is certainly not the player he was when he led the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl 5-6 years ago. But when you see the other quarterbacks who've been signed, even to be backups around the league in the 2 years since Kaepernick last played, it's clear that the league is doing something to keep him out because of his protest. And he has filed a collusion grievance or a collusion lawsuit to challenge that. Whether he can prove that the collusion that the two owners maybe sought to keep him barred is going to be difficult to prove. But I don't think there's any doubt that some kind of statement was made by the league to keep him out. Yeah. The same thing's happening to his former teammate Eric Reed.
Right. So what do you think, Dom, at the end of the day, how the players are going to deal with this? Do you think they're going to be satisfied just to sit in the locker room and say, we won't go out until it's our time to play?
That could happen. I mean, I think that there's an element of this being a bit of a strike a preemptive strike in a labor war. It will be real interesting to see how the players get together and what if they decide to take some other kind of collective action of some sort. But I think that the league sent them a message that they may feel they need to respond to for sure. It's just going to, I don't know how that's going to be, whether it's staying in the locker room, finding some other way to protest. The thing about the anthem that was so gripping was that it got people's attention. What else can the players do now to get the country's attention?
Well, we'll see, won't we? Dom Constantino, sports writer for Deadspin, joining me from New York. Thank you, Dom.
Thank you, Carol.